Institute of Public Relations defines public relations as a planned and sustained effort to establish mutual understanding between an organization and its public, though there are various and avalanche definitions of public relations from different schools of thought and scholars. But today, On Your Image is a very special program, special because Your Image clocks 6 this month, and today's program will be dedicated to Your Image on your station. Of course, we have been rocking it for the past 6 years and want to appreciate your audience over the years. And today, we want to celebrate ourselves on this show. And I have professionals, erudite scholars, population veterans, and of course, public analysts to, of course, come along with me on this show this week. Let me start from my left-hand side. He's not just only a real highness, he's also a veteran public relations practitioner, and is one of those people that practice public relations at the earliest time in Nigeria. He was the public relations manager of Nigeria Airways, defunct now, but he's still in the practice of public relations because he has mentored and tutored so many people that are doing very well today. Join me as I welcome His Royal Highness Oba Barrister Olufemi Ogunleye, of course, Towulade Akin of Owo Kingdom. Kabisi, you are welcome to your meeting.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
On my immediate right side, I also have a veteran broadcaster and, of course, a public analyst. Is not new on this show. Mr. Eddie, I know you are most welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Hello,
And the initiator of the program is very much on the show today. He initiated the program 6 years ago, and the idea keeps on rolling till today. It is to the glory of God that he's been able to sustain and maintain this show for the past 6 years. Mr. Akin Okudero is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Populations, one-time chairman of the institute. Of course, he has also served at the Governing Council of the NIPR in Nigeria. Mr. Akin Okudero, you are welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And I want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And let me start from you.
Okay.
6 years is not a joke. And this program, of course, is the first of its kind on the continent of Africa. How have we been able to cope in the last 6 years and sustaining this kind of program?
Thanks very much for the compliment. I'd like to glorify God. We have a mentor, one of them, who is Kabisi of Aguleye, who is there with us. And I also have another mentor too, Mr. Eddie, I know. They are the leaders that mentor us and who have provided quality leadership, which we are towing the line today. Of course, leadership is about vision. And when we look back into the personalities of people like Bakenne and some other international personalities, we want to look into the future and find a way of positioning things, making things better from the way it has been. Well, the program was built because we looked at the level at which public relations is being applied in Nigeria and in Africa too. And we found out that the issue of stakeholder relations, ensuring proper and robust engagement with all publics on an issue in a society has been of low level. And we now came up with the fact that we must engender an atmosphere that will promote peace, that will promote understanding, that will nurture our youth to become great leaders with vision, people who will be pragmatic, who will want to do things following due process and ensuring that they abide by the law of the land. So the program came into existence because we believe that there have been some social menaces that are in the society, and if we cannot curtail such social malaise, then this kind of situation that we are just trying to access currently wouldn't have occurred. So it is like we had a vision that if we do not apply public system principles, then we are bound to have crisis. And that is why we are this period. Let me stop at that.
Okay, before I go to Mr. Eddie, let me just ask you this question briefly. Do you think this program, your image has been able to meet the expectations of the public?
Of course, to some extent, we have started by providing public relations, education, and enlightenment. Okay. And I'm glad we have achieved that. We have also moved a step forward by having engagement with the people in the corporate world. And that was witnessed with the previous 4 editions. We have the corporate leaders from Federal University of Agriculture and even Christian University, among others. We are now relating with people who will be able to organize, motivate, and then do things in proper perspective, and then ensure that the norms are followed, and that people are properly trained. And education.
I'll still come back to PR training. Let me start from that. I'm sorry for interjecting. Let me come back to Mr. Eddie.
I think I must.
Yes, yes, you will. Let me ask this question, then you cannot corroborate whatever you have said. Sir, people believe that broadcasting is a publication's practice on its own. And I want you to tell us the symbiosis between public relations practice and broadcasting as a veteran broadcaster.
Thank you very much. Let me start by first and foremost congratulating the founder of this program. And if you look at the term image, means a lot. Means a lot to the family, means a lot to the state, to the larger society, and even to a nation. Image has to do with a mirror. How do you see yourself? How do you manage your affairs? And I so much like to talk about the topic because it has ramified through so many issues. I have been privileged to partake on this program. I think twice. There was one we did one on community relations, and because I was a former community leader in Afelumore, and the program was very, very beneficial. So image is everything. Image ramifies through everything in our life, and I think people should take that opportunity. The problem with this nation today is the problem of image. We are not looking at ourselves the way we should look at ourselves. We are not doing what we should be doing. We are not relating to different public things that we should relate to. Now back to your question. So I must commend him, and I think people should come to his aid by finding time to sponsor this program and bring in ideas. Now coming to the question you asked, well, there's no way you can separate public relations from the media, because there are so many other media that you can use apart from broadcasting. You can use the press, you can use the radio, and these days, you are using social media, to do public relations work. But in those days, before the advent of social media, I think broadcasting was it, because it combines the vision, and the words, so people believed in broadcasting so much, and because the reach is larger. I mean, you are talking here, or you are running a program here. People in Japan, everywhere, they can monitor it, especially with the advent of technology. So it's very important because it shows you who you are, and it teaches you what you are supposed to do. So broadcasting and public relations, there's no way you can separate them. It's part of public relations. So
they're just like Siamese twins.
Siamese twins, because you need it, to reach the stakeholders you want to reach the target you want to reach the audience you want to reach, and to enable you change opinion. If you're the target, to change opinion, maybe of the youth, maybe of women's group, maybe of the elders, and the particular thing you're going to use, to reach them. Some you can use broadcasting. It's like you want to reach the youth, and you are writing an article in World Journal, World Journal in the United States. How many youths read World Journal? So you are not getting to them. Or alternatively, you want to reach the elderly people. I want to use YouTube. I mean, but broadcasting cuts across so many strata. Broadcasting is part of radio, is part of it. Television is part of it. DT, direct to home, is part of it. Cable retransmission is part of broadcasting, and so you have this collection, combination, to reach
public relations.
Thank you very much. Let me now come back to Kabiyesi. As Yoruba we say, "Enu Agbalobi Igbosi," words of elders are words of wisdom. So, Kabiyesi, you started as a cub reporter, and you love to be addressed as a reporter, and you ended up as a manager of publications at Nigerian Airways. And since then, you have not even relented from one practice to the other. To the extent that you have even become a mentor to so many people. Even till now, you still study. Your image, has it actually met the expectation of your own practice and your belief, the way you left your publications practice years back? Has the program met your vision there?
Well, let's thank God first that He gave the originator of this program that inkling to start it. When perhaps he was trying, perhaps he did not know to what extent it will go. But your image, which was started 6 years ago, has really traveled fast and has done wonderful things in improving even the profession itself. I am lucky to have participated 1 or 2 times, coming from Lagos in those days, so this I never even knew I would come to live nearby. Looking at populations that I practiced in those days, things have changed now, changed for good, because technology has really added glamour and value to populations today. Things that I was laboring myself to do for my organization to achieve results are easier today if one follows the principles and then the means of doing it well. I came from the media. I came from newspaper, particularly as a reporter, into public relations. But it was very valuable to me, and I stand that argument today, although it's an argument in academics and everywhere, that you can be a successful PR man without being a journalist. But I want to say, perhaps because I am just one, I want to say that it adds better value if you are a journalist and you cross into public relations.
Let me suggest, in what way can journalism add value to publishing?
Your job as a journalist, your writing, your reporting, your everything, the press relation in the aspect of public relations, it makes you a super press relations officer, because even in PR, or I know you are closer to teachers in communication nowadays, they teach press writing especially.
Yeah, sure.
And so if you are a reporter before, you have passed all these meals, of course it's easy for you. Sometimes, and I'll tell you my experience, in Nigeria in those days, at management meetings, sometimes I dictated stories from that management meeting direct to an editor. I came from the press that I had access to editors in newspaper. I just say, Oremi, how are you? We've just finished a meeting and this is the story. I give you four paragraphs, just on the phone, offhand, like that. I go to that level. So while reporters were waiting outside at the airport call, waiting for my press, although I will still use your press release, I made my colleagues lazy. I wouldn't give you a chance to write story. I want you to publish story the way I had it direct from the management. That is the spirit of the immediacy. And it's only somebody who has been part of that reporting system can act such way. PR today, you see some people that just came into the business, either if you read history or you read geology or you read something, you just come into publication. The difference is always very clear. So the media has a very way of making it. Coming back to this program, the program has been very fruitful, very useful. I watched it on 1 or 2 occasions. I mean, apart from being a party to discussing it, and I so know that it had a great impact. So I congratulate my great brother. Well done, and we still need more job to do. We'll join you. If we have been lazy before, not giving you the kind of support that you needed, I think now, what is in the country today, from things that are happening now, PR is more needed than ever before, both for stakeholders, for people, for government. They lack it too, and they must work hard to get the correct thing to be done.
PR is more needed to solve some of the avalanche of problems that we have in Nigeria. Your image at 6, way forward, and we are using this opportunity to celebrate ourselves. If you don't celebrate yourself, who will? And that is why we are dedicating today's edition to your image, and of course, that is what we want to discuss, strictly on this show today, even next week when we come back. Let me now come back to Mr. Okudero. Kabidi has said it all, that PR should be used to solve so many problems. Your image, what other problems do you think this program can actually solve in future? I want to go contemporary now.
Well, actually, if you look at what public relation is supposed to do in the society, it is to, first of all, engender growth, development, and then create a unity. But when you segment, you begin to look at how much of education have you got to give to enable people apply public relation principle in the homes, at work, in the society, and at a global level. Because what public relation tends to do is to unite people, bring them on a common platform where conflicts are removed, where there will be mutual benefit for causes that have evolved. And when you look at it, what we are trying to do is to also ensure that in corporate governance, there is the platform to enrich people, to give them the substance that will enable them to have the nitty-gritty of the bureaucratic process, and at the same time imbibe that leadership process that will take them to achieve ultimately for the nation where they serve. For example, I was relating an experience that we had in those days. When we started from a junior office in my former place where I retired from, projects were executed, funds were allocated, powers were delegated at the very local level. But what have we seen now? It has been moved, power has moved, execution of project has moved from that local place to the local government headquarters. It has been also moved from the local government headquarters to the state. And it has also moved from the state to the national, to the federal capital. So how do you now train people? How do people get that quality training? How do they imbibe the spirit of diligence, commitment to the ethics of work? How do they learn? And that is why we have leaders that are not deep at all nowadays. Leaders who do not know their left from their right. And when they are now saddled with higher responsibilities, you now see what is happening. People now begin to train people and get the chunk of whatever is available, forgetting that there are people along the line, up the ladder, who must be taken care of. So that is the level we are found at. So what public relation now will do is to bring everybody to the table, teach them, engage them, and even the youth. The youth will now find a good ground to try. Look at the youth of nowadays, very, very efficient, very, very intelligent. In fact, they are very intelligent. The materials that are available for them to use now are much more than what we were available with in those days. So you cannot compare the youth of nowadays with the youth of in those days.
During your own time.
So they must be given the capacity to thrive. They must be given the resources to use in achieving whatever they desire in life. So, and beyond that, when you train the youth, you are bound to have more creativity. You are bound to have innovations, because the youth are very powerful intellectually. They can visualize things and translate.
We'll still come back to contemporary issues.
Okay.
We'll still come back to contemporary issues. Let me come back to Mr. Idiano. You talk about leadership, and one of the areas of provisions, we have what we call a government public relations. Let's go to practitioners who work in government now. Don't you think that some of them have compromised the real practice of public relations? Don't you say that it's more propaganda than the real practice? Your opinion?
Well, it depends on who is doing what. I'd had cause to interrogate the reasons why some people we all respected while they were editors, of newspapers, who actually did well. They wrote fantastic articles. They were very critical. They're very creative and all that. But getting to government now, they change. For instance, I read a piece last week. Yeah, actually this week, while one of the president's men was trying to put the blame, on religious bodies, saying that the situation we have in the country now can be blamed on the religious organizations, Christians, Muslims, and the newspapers, for what the youth did, some few weeks ago. And I begin to wonder, I know he wouldn't have written that, while in office, and that's Femi Adesina. And it's so surprising. It's better you don't take a job if you cannot really, tell the truth. Yes, the quality of leadership vis-a-vis PR, or telling the leader, the truth, telling truth to the authority.
To polarize.
I think it has changed considerably. I recall, I used to have a friend, I'm sure Kabisi will know him, Dapo Adeniola. When Dapo took the job from late Bola Ige, he told him, point blank, the day I advise you, and you throw away my advice, I'll leave the job. Yeah. And Bola Ige respected him a lot because he did the job professionally. You can still do the job professionally and still, have the respect of your boss and, members of the public. And so there is that deficit, leadership deficit, when people take that kind of, because you are the image maker, you are the bridge between the government, your principal, and your professional colleagues. And when things, are handled this way, I begin to wonder, did we get it right? Leadership, are we doing the right thing? What do we expect people coming behind us, to do? Because when things go awry, even amongst members, look, you can even take Ogun State for example, the relationship between the media men. There was a time, they all left after maybe the governor left them for 4 years, 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. They waited and they all left, and you begin to wonder, how did it get to that level? And it's because of the way some of us, carry the relationship between the practitioners and the perception of people in government and the practitioners. And I don't blame them. It's the way they see, they see them that they relate with them. So yeah, leadership, yes, maybe it can get better, but for now, in some respects, we're not doing it right.
Thank you very much. And let me go back to Kabisi now. Kabisi, you are a practitioner, PR practitioner, and of course, your role has been very efficient in your territory, in your domain. The role of traditional institutions, how far has it gone in terms of relationship, community relationship, so to speak? What advice do you give to your colleagues in the traditional institution? Because it goes a long way, because traditional institution is an authority, an institution, it stands on its own, and government definitely at every level respects that institution, and they have a lot of roles to play in this area. So what do you think they should do?
Well, before I say a bit about that, let me join my colleague Ewedairo on the issue of leadership, particularly the appointees in government working as public relation people. We have to define what is the role of a press secretary and a public relations man in government. They are two sharp, different things. I have studied a lot of my colleagues, my seniors, my contemporaries who have acted in these positions, and I find a lot of shortcomings. Either they were not in a position to a level position with their principals where you can say, sir, this is impossible, or this is good, or this is not good. Otherwise, I hardly see what I call counter narratives from issues that affect government and public, when public had a perception based on the inadequacy of government giving correct information ab initio. I don't know whether you understand what I mean. Sure. When things happen, people have perception outside that why is this government doing that? And the government retain that, they allowed that perception to stay longer than necessary without making an immediate correction. When I was in Nigeria, I use Nigeria as an example for everything I do, because it was a mini government on its own when those when we were in. If my managing director dressed in white suit to work one day, I can decipher what he was going to do that day. It got to that level. You must study who is your principal. You must know him in and out. You must have access to him. I fought from the smallest position I came into Nigeria as an assistant PRO, but I rose to the level of a director before I left. I worked myself there. because I wanted to look face to face with my chief executive and know what he meant before he uttered the word, so I can write for that angle and advise the public. When you are taking decisions, I should be a party to that decision making, so that when I'm to defend decisions, I will be defending from the bottom of the story, not for you to say I should go and say what I don't know anything about.
I think we will continue from there next week because of our time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The time that we first spent, the second edition will come next week, God willing, and we are still celebrating ourselves because all of us are professionals here, and we need to celebrate ourselves. And this is why we draw the context of this week's edition of Your Image. Your Image assists the way forward. I want to say a very big thank you to all of us who have been coming with us in the last 6 years, and this is where we have got to. Of course, an achievement. I want to congratulate ourselves. Kemi, I want to say a very big thank you to you. His Royal Highness Oba-Olufemi is veteran PR practitioner, and to Uladi Akin, thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And Mr. Ewedairo, a veteran broadcaster and public analyst, thank you very much for being part of our celebration.
Thanks for having me.
And of course, the initiator, Mr. Akin Okudero. Congratulations. I will say that to you.
Thank you very much. It's a call to duty, and we are ready to serve.
So until we meet next week, we continue with the celebration. Thank you very much for being part of this show in the last 6 years. Can you do without populations? No, it has come to stay. See you next week.
They should please appoint for themselves leaders and let them come and sit down with me. Let us dialogue.
Our demands for good governance and end to police brutality has been heard loud and clear. Government is ready to dialogue. Please, let us stop the wanton destruction of public utilities. Let us allow people to go about their normal duties. Let us stop blockade of roads. Stop the attacks. Let us unite for a better society. This message is from the Ogun State government.
Some marriages, true, are made in heaven.
Made in heaven?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
If the husband and wife, or whatever their age, if they will tell the truth, no marriage is